coverage selection.
Did you know Utah is #1 in the nation for economy, fiscal stability, education, and overall lifestyle? So when it comes to banking, stick with the local professionals who know what Utahns need. Bank of Utah's knowledgeable team provides expert guidance and personalized solutions. Whether you're saving for the future, growing a business, or just need help managing your money. No matter what your financial situation is, turn to Bank of Utah as your first choice and most trusted financial partner. Bank of Utah. My Utah, my bank. Member FDIC.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What would life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Go! Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
And good morning. Welcome to the show on a gorgeous Saturday morning as we're enjoying sunny, clear skies. And it looks like, I hate to say it, but this could be probably one of the best days that we've had all week, and it may be the best day we're going to have for the next week. Welcome to the show on this Saturday morning. We'll feel right along with Mark Anderson of Anderson Seed and Garden.
Yeah, I'm saying maybe for the whole month.
Yeah, but we need the rain, and we're always grateful for the rain, especially as you look at just how the state is doing. The southern part of the state starting to get into some scary areas where we've got severe and extreme drought in southern part of Utah, but here in the north, still looking good overall. Porcupine Reservoir, I saw a stat this week. They're at 104 or 114% above capacity.
A lot of extra.
I know over at Newton Reservoir is pretty much full at 100%. Hiram's pretty close. Bear Lake is about 74. So we're doing really good in the north. I mean, it's still, we always want to look to ways to conserve water, but
and Bear Lake's going to fill up again.
Yeah,
like they're anticipating it's going to be like there's going to be no beaches again this year.
I saw that. Yes. So if you are going to be going to Bear Lake, you want to probably go about 4 a.m.
Yeah,
get to the lake before the sun comes up.
Yeah, before everybody else gets there.
So welcome to the show. It's great to have everyone here, and phone lines are open. We can take your calls all show long. If you've got a question, comment for Mark, as all of us are going to be heading out into the yard to do projects today. We want to take your calls and find out how we can help here on the Garden Guide. And a lot to talk about today because there's been a couple parties going on at Anderson's.
Oh, some fun things happening at Anderson's. So compost tea party was yesterday, so we kicked off the compost tea season, and we've turned it into compost tea plus this year. So we've actually added one small ingredient that allows it to penetrate into the soil and then be absorbed up by the plants better. And so this is a nice little addition that will just make it a little bit more effective than it was before. It doesn't really change the composition. It just makes it so the plants can absorb it and the soil can retain it a lot longer. But our compost tea, if you're not familiar with the compost tea, it is full of microbes and microorganisms. It's full of mycorrhiza, and these basically get into the soil and stimulate the soil activity. They get natural processes happening there. The mycorrhiza colonize the root system of your plants and make your plants much, much more efficient at picking up water and nutrient, because the mycorrhiza creates this microscopic root system that goes out in search of water and nutrient and brings it right to its host. So the mycorrhiza kind of, it's not a parasite because it's not stealing from the plant, but what it does is it creates this symbiotic relationship with the plant where it brings the plant water and nutrient, and then the plant digests it and then gives a little bit back to the mycorrhiza. Then the mycorrhiza goes out and gets more.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, and so a parasite will just take from the host, where a symbiotic relationship, they work together. Okay. And the mycorrhiza is better and more efficient at transporting water and nutrient to the plant than the plant is itself. And so it will find all that water and nutrient that's out there around the plant, bring it right to the plant. So they've done studies with mycorrhiza and found trees out in the middle of nowhere where there's like nothing else growing but this one great big tree. And they've found the mycorrhiza root system has spread 500, 1,000, 2,000 feet away from the tree to go find that water and nutrient and then bring it right to bring it to the host. Wow. Yeah. So if the host dies, then the mycorrhiza dies. So it works really, really hard to keep its host healthy and alive, because if it loses the host, then it's toast.
Network.
Yeah, it's toast. And so compost tea has that in there, and it has all these beneficial microbes and microorganisms that are pulled from worm castings. And then we put a little bit of soy protein in there, and we put a little bit of lactose in there to feed all the microbes and make them happy, and they just multiply like crazy. And then there's a little bit of kelp in there, a little bit of humate, and it just builds your soil back up. It activates your soil, gets things going, and your plants respond like crazy. So it's good for hanging baskets. It's good for planters. It's great for individual vegetables in your garden, like tomatoes or peppers or squashes or melons or cucumbers. Plants that you can just water individually, and it just makes them boom, makes them just go like crazy. Yeah. So compost tea, though, if you buy a 1 gallon container or a 2.5 gallon container, then you can come back and get free refills throughout the summertime. So you buy a container, we'll fill it up for you. You take it home, you use it, and you want to use it within 24 hours. You want to use it fairly quickly. So you take it home. It's not concentrated. You're just going to use it as is. It's ready to use. Water your plants with it. And then you can bring those containers back and get free refills throughout the summer. Most of our customers come in, once a week, once every 2 weeks, and we'll fill them up for them. They go home, they hit their strategic plants with it, keep them rolling. And the microbes and the microorganisms in there really last about 2 weeks. And so every 2 weeks is more than adequate for individual plants. Really gets them going. But our compost tea program is a free refill program. So you buy your containers, and then you can come in and you get free refills as needed. So,
and if you're like myself, you bought containers years ago, you can just come in, re-decal them.
Yes,
and
exactly.
then that way you're saving the container every year and reusing it.
Yeah, we do lots of recycling, and so I've got customers that bring those in, and we'll put a new decal on your old containers from last year, the year before. We'll put a 2025 on there, and then you pay your fee for the year, but at least you don't have to buy new containers. But we can reuse and repurpose some of those old containers. Yeah,
and it's great. We've used it on our especially we've got an area of our raspberries that always kind of struggles a little bit, and really, really perks those up. And if you've put in a bare root tree in the last couple of months from the bare root tree sale, that'll just take off.
Really good, really good. Most of our bare root trees are all potted up now. We've been potting up trees this week, so there's a few left, but not too many. But we still do have some small fruits. There's lots of nice raspberries. I've got another batch of strawberries coming next week. And there's a lot of other small fruits, so blueberries and blackberries and currants and elderberries. We've got some of those still available, bare root.
Okay.
But nice selection of trees and shrubs have all come in, so we've still got them spread throughout the parking lot as we're trying to organize and get things looking good, because so many plants showed up last week. It was crazy. But now our greenhouses are full. And so the vegetable greenhouse is just completely full of vegetables. There's tomatoes, there's peppers, there's squashes, there's melons. There's just a little bit of everything in there. And then today we're having our planting event. And for our planting event, we've got all of our flowers in stock as well, too. Now, it is kind of early, and the weather has been cool for us this spring. And so the flowers aren't all blooming amazing right now since it is still April. But we've got petunias and marigolds and alyssum and lobelia and a whole bunch of different flowers that you can choose from to put into your planters. And today we're providing, for those that have signed up and are registered for the event, we'll provide the labor and the soil to fill your planters with. So you bring your planters in, and we recommend you stick to 4 to 6 for a maximum. If you bring more than that, we'll make you pick which ones you want to do. We've got to have enough soil left over for everybody that wants to participate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and don't bring your cattle trough to fill up. We're talking about very mobile planters that are easy to handle once they're full. We'll do the labor. We'll plant them up for you, but we'll have you pay for the flowers. We'll have you pay for maybe a little bit of bark down in the bottom and a little bit of fertilizer if you want some fertilizer to get them looking really good. And then we'll plant them up and provide the soil for free. And so it's a really fun event. There's still some slots available on our website if you want to go on there to register to come in. And what we recommend is that you register for like 2:00 in the afternoon. Come in about 1:30. That'll give you some time to cruise through the greenhouses, figure out what you want to plant, and then when your reservation time comes up, you're already ready to go. You just go to like all of our planting stations. Somebody will be ready for you, and we'll get you potted up and load them up in your car, and away you go.
You're ready to go.
Yeah,
okay.
It's really nice. We've got a really good system, and it works out very, very nicely. But you want to come in early. So if your appointment's at 2:00, make sure you come in at least 20 minutes early or so, however much time you think you need. And we do have helpers to help you find the plants that you're kind of looking for. If there's specific things you're looking for, if you're just like, I just want red and white, but I don't know what to put in there, I'll have people there to help you find some really good combinations, to make your planters look nice as well too. So we do have some reservations open, and we probably do have room for a few walk-ins, not very many, but occasionally we'll have some spots for a few walk-ins.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is.
And that's few as in maybe a few.
A few.
Yeah.
Yeah. A few handfuls, but it is possible. So if you really are concerned about it, make sure you call in, and we'll get you hooked up with a reservation time. And it's been a lot of fun the last few years. The planting event's just been a blast, and so it does bring a lot of people in. And for the most part, it's almost May, so we usually tell people, put them out during the day, but if it starts to get cold,
bring them in.
You bring them in at night. Yeah. So you want to protect them, because they're not gonna be perfect. If we get some really cold weather, we get some frost, it could definitely damage some of your flowers. So make sure you care for them correctly.
Yeah, and I've just been looking at the weather forecast through basically through next week, and we do have temperatures in some parts of the valley that are going to be down possibly into the 30s. So
yeah,
that's definitely time where you want to bring those plants in. If you are planting, you mentioned vegetables are now all in stock. Probably also a good idea to put walls of water around some of those plants.
Yeah. Our last frost generally is around the 20th of May. So that gives us it's 4 weeks.
Yeah. we still got a ways.
We got 4 weeks, and that's just the average. Last year, we had that crazy frost in June. And so we had frost on the 18th of June last year. It was the 18th of June we had frost. So you just never know. But normally around the 20th of May, we're pretty safe after that. So.
My plum tree and my peach tree have blossomed, and it's just gorgeous. And I just think, I hope you're going to last, because it's still in that area where the next few weeks could just wipe us out.
A light frost won't damage that fruit, but if we get into the mid-20s, then that could definitely do some damage. It's the critical point when they're actually in bloom. And so for them to have bloomed and start to set small fruit, they're actually past the critical point where they're doing pretty good. And even if you do have a frost and it damages some of the fruit, it'll just drop all that fruit, and then it will naturally thin itself, which is not
actually a good thing.
It's not a bad thing. Yeah, I was going to say it's not a bad thing, because last year I had to pull like 90% of the fruit off of my donut peach, and it still wasn't enough. But my peaches are loaded this year with flowers, just absolutely covered, and my nectarines are covered, and my apricot's all done. It's done. It's done blooming, and so it looks really good. And the apples and the pears are just starting to go in my orchard. Yeah, so it's kind of exciting to watch them bloom, and spring's perking up, and things are starting to happen.
Yeah, it really is. And with that, and we can take your calls if you've got a question for Mark about your fruit trees, pruning. We could get into pruning too, because a lot of people still haven't done that yet. Talk about yards and things that can start going into the ground as we're starting to plant. Also, for people that didn't get a chance to take care of their lawn, I see a lot of people aerating this time of year,
right,
and thatching, those kind of things to try to just help bring power raking to get rid of some of the thatch.
Yeah.
See a lot of people doing that to try to get their lawns to perk up.
Yes, and it's so green out there. I mean, I'm looking out the window right now at the mountains. I'm going, oh, there's snow up there, and it's like really green and nice. And most of our homeowners in the valley, all their lawns are really starting to perk up. But it does make a huge difference right now to aerate, especially if your soil's been compacted over time. And power raking. If you've got a really bad thatch problem, it really does help. It's a lot of work. I think it's like one of the hardest jobs I've ever done.
Yeah,
is power raking and then cleaning up afterwards. Aeration's bad enough, but power raking is like even worse. And so we usually recommend you put humate out there to break that thatch down. So normal thatch layer is probably about 1/4 of an inch. So what we'll have our customers do, and people that own lawns, cut a 10 by 10 inch square out of the turf and just dig that up and take a look at it. Pull it up to your eye level so you can look at it. You can see where the soil stops and where the thatch begins, which is kind of where the root system stops, and then where the stems of the grass are usually slightly above that, and then you got the blades of the grass above it. You can see how deep your thatch is because it'll accumulate right on the surface of the soil, and it looks kind of corky and it just kind of looks like this layer of dead stuff in there. It's just dead stuff in there, but it does look kind of corky. And so usually we'll look at that. And if it's 1/4 of an inch or less, that's pretty healthy. It's actually pretty healthy for the soil because it will shade the soil and keep the soil moist longer through the summertime when it's really, really hot. So 1/4 of an inch or less is actually really healthy. And to maintain that 1/4 of an inch, we'll usually put on humate once or twice a year because the humate will decompose that thatch layer. It'll break it down. It'll turn it into soil. So it will put that nutrient of the dead grass clippings back into the soil as it breaks that material down. If you get somewhere above a 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch to an inch, I've even seen an inch thick of thatch before, then you would probably want to power rake.
Okay.
I don't think the humate's going to decompose that much. I mean, it's a lot, and that will suffocate your grass. So you get a really thick layer of thatch like that builds up. It will suffocate the grass. It won't allow fertilizer to penetrate into the soil. It'll stay right there on that layer, and so the root system never picks it up. And so it just kind of absorbs it. Acts like a sponge, and it absorbs the moisture, but it doesn't let the moisture go down through. So your grass will really, really struggle. Your turf will struggle that way. And so a healthy level of thatch is very, very beneficial for your turf, but an unhealthy level will do some serious damage. So then we want to take that out. We want to work on that.
And most of the time I found that even just going out with a rake, just to break it up a little bit.
To break things up.
Yeah, that usually does it. And then put a little humate down.
Right.
And then you're good to go.
Oh, my lawn looks so good right now. We've mowed it once or twice now. And I put the humate on earlier, end of March, put the humate on. And then a couple weeks later, we put a little fertilizer on. And now it just looks amazing. Yeah. It looks really, really good. And, when your grass is healthy, it doesn't need as much water. And what we like to do is put either back to green or the humate we always put on, but the back to green or the hydrotane on there towards the latter part of March, first part of April. And then our irrigation doesn't come on until middle of May. And that will get us through the entire spring season without having to water at all. So we don't even use any water because the hydrotane and the back to green will help the soil absorb and retain that moisture a lot longer. So we can get by for 2 months in the springtime, even if we get a 2-week dry spell in there where we just don't have to water the turf because it holds the moisture so much. The grass just never even stresses. So it's a really great option.
I noticed Governor Cox in his press conference that he held earlier this week, and granted that was focused on southern Utah, but he also talked about just ways of conserving water. And he mentioned that we really do not need to be watering our lawns until temperatures are in the mid-70s. And so far, nowhere in the state. Salt Lake maybe a little bit in the mid-70s, but right now, here in the north, we haven't seen the mid-70s yet, and we're not going to see the mid-70s at least for another couple weeks.
What USU Extension recommends is 1 to 1.5 inches of water per week to keep your turf looking really, really good. And so you need to really know how much water your sprinklers put out in a certain amount of time. So it's critical that you measure your water output on your sprinklers, maybe turn them on for a half an hour and just see how much water they put out. And you can put little containers out there. You know, they're almost like rain gauges, but you can put containers out there. It will collect the water that comes from your sprinklers, and you can estimate, you can say, okay, in a half an hour, they put out a half an inch of water. And so I can turn them on 3 times a week for a half an hour, and they will put out an inch and a half of water over that week, because we do it like 3 times. If you really want to conserve, you can cut it down to twice a week, but then you'd bump up your sprinklers to maybe 45 minutes, because then they'll put out 3/4 of an inch twice a week, which is still the same amount of water. Yeah, but your turf will hold it longer because it penetrates deeper down into the soil. And so you really need to find out how much water your sprinklers are putting out with each application, so that you can adjust them correctly so that you're not using too much water. But then there's products like the Hydrotain and like the Back to Green and like the Humate that are very, very inexpensive compared to your water bill.
Yeah.
Like very inexpensive compared to your water bill. And they will like make your water much, much more efficient. So with the Hydrotain, we have found that you can save 30 to 50% of your water that you're using on your turf by applying that product, and it lasts for 90 days. So you could put it on the 1st of June. It will last all the way until Labor Day, which is the hot, dry part of the summer, hottest, driest part of the summer. You can put the Hydrotain on, and instead of watering the 3 times a week for the half an hour, you could actually do twice a week for the half an hour and eliminate 33% of your watering and still keep your lawn as green as it was before. So that's how amazing it works. And then what the Hydrotain does is once it gets down in the soil, it binds to the soil, and then it's very, very, very attractive to water. So it pulls the water down in. Even water that's like on your grass as dew in the morning. Say we have a humid day, dew accumulates on the grass. It'll pull that water down into the soil for your grass to pick up and utilize. And so it's super effective at absorbing and retaining that moisture, and it will cut your water usage down by 30 to 50%. Absolutely. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's really cool. And it comes in a liquid and it comes in a granule. So it's very easy to apply, put on just like you would a liquid fertilizer or liquid weed spray or a granulated fertilizer. Just broadcast it on and then water it afterwards. So once it gets down in the soil, it will work for 90 days. And we've used it for years, and it is dramatic, the difference that it makes. Like you will absolutely see a difference within a couple weeks.
So Back to Green, Hydrotain,
Hydrotain,
a little Humate,
and Humate
really goes a long way.
Really cuts your water usage back. So if you want to conserve water this year and you're not quite ready to change your grass out to a different variety, because there's a lot of very, very nice soft turf grasses that we could use to incorporate into your existing grass or to kill your old grass out. If you've had your lawn for 30 years, it's time to replace it. It's time to put some new grass out there. Most of these newer varieties of grass use 30 to 50% less water to stay green in the first place. So there's a lot of people that are promoting flip the strip, which is great because it gets people to think about conserving and using less water in their park strip. But there's a lot of really great turf grasses you could put out there that would not need much maintenance. They would need to be watered occasionally, but not a whole lot. And you can turn that park strip into a very low maintenance area, but still retain the turf, which has some really great benefits. Easier to maintain than shrubs and perennials and things in there. And your cost is 3 cents a square foot. It's like so inexpensive to change that grass out. It doesn't cost hardly anything, where if you're putting in native plants or water wise plants, you're $10 to $20 a plant, and if your park strip's only 500 square feet, you're
makes a big difference.
It's really, really cheap to do that much. I mean, you're only talking on grass, you're only talking $20 for the grass seed, when you're talking per plant $20 a plant, to put in there for 500 square feet. So it is much, much less expensive, and it's very, very easy to do. We can walk people right through the process, how to change that grass out and put a more drought tolerant turf in. And you're still going to get the benefits of the turf. It's going to stay green. It's going to create oxygen. It's going to cool your environment. It's going to trap dust. It's going to like prevent erosion and runoff. I mean, there's a lot of really great advantages to turf, and it's super low maintenance as well, too. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got our break here at the bottom of the hour, but when we come back, we want to again remind everybody about the planting event, the compost tea party that's going on right now at Anderson Seed and Garden as well. And we need to talk trees. Mark, it's Arbor Day, of course. We'll talk some tree varieties coming up, and we can take your calls. If you've got a question about your lawn, your garden, call in 435-753-KVNU. That's 753-KVNU for the Garden Guide, and we'll be right back. 30 minutes after the hour, and with your KVNU News update, I'm Will Feelwright. A Cache County Sheriff's deputy was injured in a traffic accident while trying to respond to another emergency Friday afternoon. The crash occurred at 3:50 p.m. near 400 East, 400 North in Logan. The deputy was driving eastbound on 400 North and had his lights and sirens on, according to Logan City Police Lieutenant Derek Dickey. Now, witnesses said the deputy's truck was traveling about 45 miles an hour at around 400 East. A southbound car attempted to cross 400 North in front of the deputy. Now, in an effort to try and avoid a collision, the deputy swerved to avoid the southbound car, but struck another vehicle parked along the road. Dickey said the deputy sustained a broken arm. He was treated by paramedics and transported to Logan Regional Hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. And a 29-year-old man has been arrested for causing more than $5,000 in damages to a Tesla that was parked outside a grocery store in Providence, according to law enforcement. Benjamin Jacob Richardson was booked Thursday into the Cache County Jail following an investigation by the Cache County Sheriff's Office. Now, in an interview with News Talk KVNU, the alleged victim explained how she was buying groceries on April 2nd and had parked in a handicapped spot before walking into the store. Now, when she returned to the car, she found that someone had keyed both sides of the vehicle. Now, according to the arrest report, deputies were able to obtain video from the grocery store showing the suspect, a bald man with a beard, who was with a younger man. Now, the suspect was seen scratching the car and then walking into the store to buy groceries. After walking out of the store, he scratched the other side of the vehicle. Now, earlier this past week, employees recognized that suspect returning to the store to use his rewards phone number, which allowed deputies to obtain Richardson's identity and later arrest him. Well, sunny skies to begin the weekend, with showers coming for the second half of the weekend. I'm Will Feelwright with your KVNU News headlines.
Good morning. This is Judson Richards. Let's begin the NFL draft. Cam Ward is off to Tennessee. Jackson Dart is heading to the Giants in New York. What was in store for rounds 2 and 3 in the most important position in football? It was another long day for Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders, not only not hearing his name called in the second or third round, but hearing Louisville's Tyler Shuck head to the Saints in round 2, and Alabama's Jalen Milroe and Oregon's Dylan Gabriel were off the board in round 3. Milroe selected by the Seahawks, Gabriel selected by the Cleveland Browns. Mike Tannenbaum, ESPN NFL front office insider, on our NFL draft coverage on ESPN Radio, finds Sanders slipping past 3 rounds hard to believe.
Something must have happened. You know, you talk to people at the combine, rub some teams the wrong way. That's going to happen. Certainly, he's not the first or the last player to quote-unquote rub the teams the wrong way. This is a really good player that's been a starter in 2 different schools. It's inexplicable that he's still available. I don't know what else to say. Like, this is somebody that has starting ability at the quarterback position. He's not going to be the first or the last one. Baker Mayfield, I spent a lot of time with Baker when he came out. He wasn't exactly the most likable figure.
Now to the NBA we go. Lakers and the Timberwolves knotted at a game apiece in their round 1 series. Game 3 in Minnesota, Lakers' Luka Doncic battling a stomach bug. He wasn't himself. The Timberwolves at home offered up some home cooking.
And will dribble inside the arc, looking to attack in the lane to the corner. Jaden lines up the 3-ball and hits it! Jaden adds to his career night. He's got 30. Timberwolves 116, Lakers 104.
The call on KFan Sports Radio, that would be the final. Timberwolves move ahead in that series 2-1, and that was the theme on Friday around the NBA. Magic beat the Celtics in that series. Bucks beat the Pacers to avoid a 3-0 deficit there.
John at the Duck Hunter asks, have you ever checked the dryer vent cover on the outside of your home? It could be broken, full of lint, or worse yet, you could have an unwanted guest living in it. John suggests you check your dryer vent today. And if you can't, call John at the Duck Hunter. He'll do a visual inspection, and if needed, run a camera through the dryer vent line to see what's going on in there. For a free consultation, call the Duck Hunter, 770-4813.
We are the Duck Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duck Hunter.
From gardening to landscaping, The Garden Guide with Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Welcome back to the Garden Guide here on News Talk KVNU. We'll feel right along with Mark Anderson of Anderson Seed and Garden. Phone lines are open if you've got a question for Mark. 435-753-5868. Took a couple questions over the break, and so we'll get to those coming up in just a minute. But want to mention first, Mark, planting event taking place today. If people weren't with us during the first half of the show, there's still a few slots available if you want to take advantage of this free event to plant up any flowers and things in your pots.
The greenhouses are loaded, so we've got tons of vegetables, and our flower greenhouse is completely full to overflowing out into the rest of the store area. So we've got lots and lots of plants to choose from. So planting event today, we're asking our participants to sign up so that we have reservations for them, so we know how many people are coming. We can handle everybody all at once. And what we do is we provide free soil to plant up your planters that you bring in, or you can buy new ones, and we'll plant those up for you as well too. And we provide the labor, but you get to pick out the flowers, and you pay for the flowers, get a little bit of fertilizer to go with them. Usually we'll recommend you put some bark down the bottom. It's like 50 cents a scoop. We'll have you pay for the bark. But we provide the soil, we provide the labor to pot them up and make your planters look really good.
Nice.
And I do have helpers to help pick out and select the flowers that are going to look best in your planters. And we do limit it to, don't bring more than 4 to 6 planters, and they need to be mobile so you can pick them up and move them. They can't be gigantic.
Yeah, if it requires a forklift, then
they don't count. They don't count. But I do have some really nice planters if you want to get some new ones for your front porch or for your back patio or something. So we can help with that as well too. So the planting event's a lot of fun. I've got tons of flowers to choose from, and we can help plant those up. And of course, we have lots of hanging baskets as well too. So I got some gorgeous hanging baskets. A few left over from the open house last week. Some new ones that we've just brought in for for May, and so lots of great looking plants there in the greenhouse. We do have a special going on pansies right now too. I think the pansy flats, full flats of pansies, are like $17 right now. They're usually like $32, so a really great price on the flats of pansies as well too. So we've got a special going on our flats of pansies, and we put those in a partially shady location. They'll bloom all summer long. They'll just bloom and bloom and bloom. They look really good. So a great time for the pansies. And our compost tea party's going on right now. So the compost tea would be excellent for your newly planted planters as well too, to get them going. But I wouldn't recommend you water them until you get them home. Yeah, because if we pot them up and then we water them, then they're like really heavy and it's going to drip everywhere. Yeah. So you don't want them dripping everywhere, and then they become very difficult to move. And so we want to wait till you get home to plant those up. So so that will work. That will work very, very well. So fun things happening at Anderson Seed and Garden. Bare root trees are just about gone, but we still have a few left. But we have all the potted trees now. They're in 5-gallon and 7-gallon containers. And they're all starting to leaf out. They look really good. I pruned and pruned and pruned and pruned trees this week. I think I did like 300 trees, and I've got more to do. I got one blister on my middle finger from pruning so much. Darn it. But that's a price you have to pay when you're going to prune that many trees. So they do look really good. There's some great looking trees.
And if we get some time, we'll talk about trees, of course, with it being Arbor Day yesterday. But took a couple questions over the break, and we want to get to these first. First one was a gentleman who wasn't able to hold on the line with us. He lives in Brigham City, lives in an apartment complex. He says he has a back patio area that's small. It's only about 12 by 5 feet. Okay. And it is partially shaded. And by partially shaded, he says it only gets about 2 hours of sunlight a day. But he's looking for tomato plants. If there be a tomato plant, he's interested in full-size tomatoes.
Yeah.
Is there a particular plant that would be able to be grown with almost full shade in a limited small space like that?
There are tomatoes that do well in containers. And depending on how large your container is, you can put tomato cages in there and do bigger tomatoes as well, too. And so there's a lot of good varieties to choose from. The shady part is a little tricky because the tomatoes really need about 8 to 10 hours of sunlight a day to produce. And so they're going to, in a shady location like that, they'll grow, they'll look green, they'll look great, but they won't really produce
Blossom
any
out.
fruit. They're just not going to produce any fruit. So it depends on how much reflected light he's getting. So if there's like a building that's nearby that's reflecting the light, so if the sun's not quite hitting it, it will do a lot better than if it were just in that shaded location all the time. So it just depends on how much extra light it's getting. I mean, you could supplement it with artificial lighting. There's some really great spotlights that are LED that use hardly any electricity, but it's a full spectrum light that would supplement the tomatoes, which might be helpful as well too. They love growing outside, so outside's going to be like perfect. But to really experience the tomatoes producing a lot of fruit and blossoms and maturing, they need to get as much sunlight as possible.
Is there a particular brand or a tomato that would work best in a planter?
Celebrity is one of our favorites as a producer, but it's also great for containers because it's a more compact plant. If you want an early variety, like Bush Early Girl's really good. Some of the other more determinate varieties, which have a more compact vine, some of the like Jet Star, I think is a more determinate plant as well too. There's quite a few that will produce like crazy if you get the right light. And we grow tomatoes in planters on our deck all the time, but we'll push them out away from the house, sometimes out onto the driveway, so that they get as much sunlight as possible. And they do really, really well. In fact, they will produce earlier than my tomatoes out in my garden because the soil warms up faster. But we have to fertilize them a lot more because they're in pots, and so it like leaches a lot of the fertilizer out. So we'll fertilize almost on a weekly basis with those containerized tomatoes, but make sure they get as much sunlight as possible.
So you definitely want to increase the amount of fertilizer because it does pull a lot of the nutrients out of the soil.
Exactly.
And then try to get as much light as it can.
And you want to use a good potting mix. Make sure your potting mix is really light and fluffy and nice, because if you're using like regular garden soil, it'll turn into a brick in a container like that. So today when we're doing the planting event, we're using a potting mix to put into those planters because regular soil is just too heavy. It's too heavy for them. So.
I think of the guest we had 2 weeks ago from Green Grow.
Right. Yeah.
The mixture that they've got would be excellent.
Is amazing. Yeah.
Be perfect in a planter.
And we do have their potting soil. So we've got their potting soil, and it's awesome. I used a little bit of it this week when I transplanted some peonies. And so I dug up some peonies, we separated them, and I used that soil to pot them into some 3-gallon containers, and it's really, really nice. But we also have our Fox Farm Ocean Forest, and we have our salamander soil, as well as our Fertilome Ultimate potting mix. So we have some really nice potting mixes to make your planters, whether there's vegetables or flowers in there, grow like crazy. So it does make a difference to put the right amount of potting soil in there and the right kind of potting soil. The right kind of potting soil. Now, you said we had an asparagus question as well, too.
Yeah. And one other quick question. He was, our gentleman who had called in over the break, had mentioned he lives in Brigham City again, so time is a little different from Brigham City here in Cache Valley, but he mentioned about wild asparagus.
Yeah.
And when wild asparagus may be coming on over in Brigham City. Now here, we're still probably about a month out, but I'm guessing within Brigham City, it's right about now.
Yeah, pretty close. I would say within the next 2 weeks, the wild asparagus will get going. Just make sure it's not on somebody's property when you go harvesting. That can be problematic, especially if they own a shotgun, So
I remember the days Mom would pile us in the old station wagon and head us out into the old farmlands of Idaho, where I was a kid growing up, and we would go down into these ditch banks. And maybe that's why Mom always made us wear dark clothing.
Go in the dusk
climb
hours,
on the ground. Yeah, that might have been why.
So I think in the next couple of weeks that'll happen. But if you want to grow your own asparagus, we just happen to have a couple varieties at Anderson's, and I just got a new batch in. We have Jersey Night, and that's a nice, big, productive green asparagus. Delicious. It's so good and very, very productive. And then we also have Purple Passion, which is a purple asparagus. And if you've never tried this purple asparagus, it's really, really good.
And is really purple.
Oh, it's purple. Yeah. It tastes really quite delicious. Okay. And so now's a good time to plant asparagus. They're all just kind of starting to sprout just a little bit, so it's perfect timing to get those going. And we've got some really great instructions on how to plant and how to keep your patch productive. They'll produce for 25 years.
Okay.
Once you get those asparagus planted, they will produce for 25 years.
Yeah.
You can't beat it.
It takes a couple years to get them started. And that's the one thing you want to keep in mind is that you won't have a huge crop that first, second, third year, but it's after that it gets going.
It's not instantaneous gratification.
Yeah.
So it takes a while. So the roots that we've got are 2 years old. They'll start producing the third year. But, if you plant 25 plants, you'll get, probably 25 spears, maybe a little bit more, but then they'll really start to reproduce, and then all of a sudden you'll have hundreds of them.
Okay.
And so you want to be patient with them and feed them and put them in the right location. And they do like full sun too, so they're not going to do well in a shady location. They need to be out in the sun. That's why they do so well on ditch banks, because most of the irrigation happens like once a week. The water comes through once a week. They keep the ditch banks clean of debris and brush and stuff, so that it's accessible.
And they have full sun.
And it's got full sun, and it's usually rocky, and there's really great drainage. And so they need full sun. They need good drainage. They need to be watered infrequently.
Okay.
So we don't want to water them every other day. We want to water them thoroughly and then let them dry out in between waterings, especially where they're 6 to 8 inches below the surface. That soil retains the moisture a lot longer. It doesn't dry out instantaneously. So we only water our asparagus like once every 10 days or so.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want to water them too much. So
all right.
Next caller.
Okay, next question. Joan is joining us on the line. Joan, welcome to the show.
Hi. I have a question about iron on raspberries. We have some iron combo chelate, and I'm wondering if that's good or if there's another kind we need.
The iron combo chelate is made right here in Logan, and it's a wonderful product. And not only does it have a chelated iron in there, but it has other micronutrients. So it's got manganese and magnesium and boron and copper and zinc. And so it provides a lot of micronutrients that sometimes our plants are deficient of those nutrients as well too. So the combo chelate's a great option. How many raspberries have you got?
About 2 rows of 20.
Okay, so you got about 40 feet. You're gonna want to mix that up at probably 1 to 2 ounces per gallon, and then use a gallon to cover probably maybe 10 feet of row. So you're gonna need probably 8 to 10 gallons to really give them enough iron, and then get it on the canes as well as into the soil. If you wanted to use a different type of iron, you could go with a chelated iron called EDDHA. That goes a little bit farther. It is a little bit more expensive, but it works no matter what your soil pH is. So that EDDHA iron, 1 pound will do about 100 feet of raspberries. So it goes a lot farther, and it's instantly available to your raspberries, and will stick around a little bit longer, possibly, than the combo chelate. But the combo chelate's amazing. It's really a great product. So you could absolutely use it.
So do we apply it to the leaves, to the plant itself, or to the ground?
Yes, both.
Okay.
Yes, both.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Joan. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks.
And phone lines are open, 753-KVNU. That's 753-5868. Still about 12 minutes before the top of the hour, so plenty of time to take a few more calls, questions. If you've got a question for Mark about your lawn, your garden. And Mark, with Arbor Day yesterday, too, we ought to talk a little bit about trees.
We should. Arbor Day is a great day to celebrate all the wonderful trees that we have around and what they do for us, shade and cooling and pulling, carbon out of the air and creating oxygen. They do so many things.
My daughter reminds me they're the best playgrounds that Mother Nature could produce. She keeps reminding us, Dad, why can't we just plant a tree that I can climb in? Because we got fruit trees, but she's like, I want a climbing tree.
I want a climbing tree, and it takes longer for them to grow as well, too. So this last week, I took 12 fruit trees home because it's time to start replacing some trees in our orchard. So in commemoration of Arbor Day, we're going to be planting 12 trees. I couldn't plant them yesterday. It was just too busy.
Yeah,
it was too busy at work. But we're going to be planting, 12 trees on our property. Just so we've got some new ones. Yeah, it's always time to replace a few fruit trees. It just seems like over time, peaches will kind of deteriorate and cherries will kind of deteriorate. And we've got one apple tree it's older than I am. I mean, so it's been around for decades. And it's really starting to show its age. It's kind of time for it to go, and constantly replacing some of those trees. And we'll be putting in a few shade trees as well too along our hillside. So we'll be planting a lot of trees this year. There's some great new trees that have come out. So some of my favorites, and we have a fairly diverse urban forest here in Logan, but we're kind of predominantly maples. There's a lot of maples in there, but there are some new varieties of maples that have come out. So if you've planted maples recently, this new series of maples is made more for our types of soil, and the series is called the Sunset Series, and there's 5 different trees in this series. One is called Crimson Sunset, so it's a burgundy colored leaf. So it's a red maple, but it will turn copper color in the fall. But then there is Pacific Sunset and Ruby Sunset and Norwegian Sunset and Urban Sunset. So they all have sunset in the names. They're a little bit smaller trees, so instead of getting 40 feet tall, 45 feet tall, they'll max out about 30 to 35 feet. So they're 10 to 15 feet shorter than some of these other Norway maple types. It's actually a hybrid, so it's a cross between a Norway maple and a Tartarian maple. The Tartarian maples are very, very resistant to iron chlorosis, and our soil is so high, the pH is so high that a lot of maples tend to be iron deficient. And so these maples will resist that because they can pick up and utilize the iron that's naturally available in the soil better because they're used to alkaline soils. And so this is a very unique series of maples that you probably won't have to supplement ever with iron because they'll get the iron that's naturally in the soil without any problem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's a really cool tree. So Ruby Sunset is green. It has kind of a jagged edge to it, or a pointy edge, not jagged. And it turns bright red in the fall. So it's green to just this deep, deep red. So pretty. And like the Norwegian maple, you'll get yellows and oranges out of it in the fall. So some really, really great colors out of this series of maples. So it's a great option if you want something different. And then if you want something that flowers, I mean, there's a lot of really great new flowering trees. I mean, pink flare cherry is one of my favorites. It's super hardy. It's a cherry that you could grow in Wellsville. So it is a zone 3, which means it's good down to 30 below. So it can handle really, really cold temperatures, and it blooms in the spring. It's just like gorgeous. And then it's got some great fall color, and it produces 0 fruit. So there's no fruit on it, so it's not going to drop fruit. So it's a great street tree. It's a really nice tree to put in your yard. In fact, I've got a friend out in Wellsville. He's like, what tree should I do? I really want some nice flowering trees, but my flowering trees always, kick the bucket out here in Wellsville. And I said, do pink flare. It's like pink flare's hardy enough to handle whatever you can throw at it out there in Wellsville, and it will do really well. In my own yard, I've got a couple really gorgeous flowering trees. So I've got a coral burst crab, and I've got a royal raindrops crab, and I've got 2 red buds that are all just ready to burst into color right now. So we're excited to see how pretty those are. But the red buds don't produce any fruit, so they don't drop stuff all over the place. And both of my crabs have persistent fruit on them, so they produce really small fruit. It's like, I was going to say like 3/8 of an inch. So it's smaller than a 1/2 inch in size, like in diameter. So it's a really small fruit, but it's persistent, so it stays on the tree. So it doesn't drop all over the place, and the birds will come in the fall and in the wintertime, and they'll eat all the fruit off the tree. So I never have to clean it up. I never have to clean up fruit because the birds just take care of all of it. So if you look for persistent varieties of crab apples, so there's like Profusion and Indian Summer, and then some of the fruitless ones like Prairie Rose are gorgeous. They're more resistant to fire blight, so I don't have any fire blight issues with my crabs at home. They just never get fire blight, and they don't drop fruit all over the place, and they're ready to just pop right now. There's like tons of blossoms on them, and my red buds are going to be like gorgeous next week. They're just going to be just like so pretty. So
all right, so some great tree options that you may want to look at if it's time to put in a few new trees around your property. Let's go back out to the phones. Kathy's joining us on the line from Dayton. Kathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. We have some os trees outside of our house, and they're wonderful shade, but they, are always dropping leaves and not leaves, like branches.
Yes, they're a little more brittle.
Yeah, is there some way to stop them from doing that?
Cut them down.
Because they're huge. My husband keeps saying, cut them down, and I keep going, we need the shade. We planted some Patmore ash between them, but they're not growing very well, probably because they're getting shade from these lovely shade trees.
Very possible, very possible. Yeah, there are certain varieties of trees that are very fast growers, and the os trees are very quick growers. And then poplars and willows, they grow really, really fast, but they tend to be brittle. And so you get some heavy windstorms, or you get some snow on them when the leaves are out, and they just break, and so you're like constantly picking up limbs and stuff. And there's really not a whole lot you can do about it. They're just a softer wood, and so they're prone to breaking. Where your ash is a really hard wood, you make baseball bats out of it. I mean, it's a hard wood, and they're going to be slower. They're just going to grow at like 18 inches a year. And so if you want to encourage those ash to take their place, use a product like the Kangaroots on them, or the Bigfoot that we've been talking about on the radio this year so far. The Bigfoot would increase their root system, like it would triple their root system. And when they have a bigger root system, then the top corresponds to it. So the bigger the root system, the bigger the top. And so if we focus on getting those roots really, really healthy on your other trees, all of a sudden they'll take off like crazy, and then you can start taking the os trees out and let the ash, or some new trees, if you want to plant some new trees, take their place.
Okay, so what should we take them all out, or should we just take them like a third of the top of it off? Or
you can trim them back, absolutely, but at some point you'll probably want to just start taking those out, removing those, and letting your other trees that you planted take their places. And if it's a more desirable tree and doesn't drop stuff, we've got a beautiful green ash in front of our house, and it's probably 70 or 80 years old. It's getting really big, but it's such a pretty tree, and it's really, really healthy. Unfortunately, ash are susceptible to some diseases and some insects, and so we want to get it as healthy as possible so it can resist all those problems that they have. But it's one of my favorite trees. I love that tree. It's really pretty. So.
Well, my problem is I like trees in general, and cutting them down seems like
it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. But trees don't have indefinite lifespans. It's like, I think we kind of have this concept in our heads that it's like, okay, trees are going to live 1,000 years, and they really don't. They really don't. So they have a lifespan just like us. So at a certain point, the trees get completely overgrown. They start to decay. You start to have branches falling out, and then they're dangerous. And so and it's really expensive to take out 50 or 60 foot trees. It gets into the thousands of dollars to have those removed, and to remove them safely. And so maintaining those trees over time, and then recognizing when it's time to replace them with something else. It's kind of the natural cycle of life. Is some of those trees definitely at a certain point they kind of need to come out because they start to become a liability and dangerous. And we definitely, for me, people are a little bit more important than the trees. But
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Kathy. Thank you for calling this morning.
Well, we've got only a minute left, Mark.
That's it.
So quick reminder of what's going on today at Anderson Seed and Garden, because still a few open slots for the planting event.
For the planting event, we've got few spots open. You can bring your planters in. We'll pot them up for free, provide soil for you. You buy the flowers, buy new pots if you need pots, buy a little bark, a little fertilizer to go in your planters, and we'll provide the rest for you. But make sure you sign up for it. We do have room for a few walk-ins throughout the day. And then we do have our pansy special going on right now. So full flats of pansies, they're $17 compared to the $32 that they usually are. So some really good prices there. Greenhouses are loaded. Vegetables all over the place, flowers everywhere, perennials are all arriving, trees and shrubs look amazing. It's spring. It's spring at Anderson, so everything's here and ready to go. And it's you just walk out in the greenhouse and you just take a big breath and it just smells like spring.
Love this time of year.
Good time of year.
Thanks to everybody for joining us, and we'll be back again next week for the Garden Guide here on KVNU.
News and stimulating talk.
America is ours.
KVNU Logan.